After I found my brother in bed with my girlfriend, my parents took their side and tried to reunite us. I vanished. Now karma made them beg for forgiveness. Be me, 27, living in Oregon. Grew up in what looked like typical middle-class family, but the dynamics in our house were beyond messed up. Have younger brother Lucas, 26. Total mommy's boy since forever. You know those kids who could literally destroy something, and their mom would praise them for being creative? That was Lucas. Meanwhile, I'm busting my ass working construction with Uncle. Started at 16 during summers, while Lucas got to focus on his artistic side, which meant smoking weed in basement. Trying to become famous streamer. Mom always had perfect excuses ready. He's just finding himself. He's sensitive. He needs time to figure things out. Meanwhile, if I came home exhausted from 12-hour shift and didn't immediately help with dishes, I was becoming lazy and needed to learn responsibility. Don't get me wrong, was still your typical suburban kid in most ways. Played lacrosse in high school, made it to state championships senior year, would have won too. If our team captain hadn't broken his leg in third quarter, spent weekends fixing motorcycles with dad in garage. Probably only time I got to escape mom's constant comparisons. Between me and Lucas, sister Kate, 24, was the smart one. Always reading. She was dad's favorite, but not in the weird way. Unlike how Lucas was mom's golden child. Kate and dad just understood each other better. She'd help him with Sudoku while I worked on bikes. It was a good balance. College is where I really started pulling ahead of Lucas. Mom would never admit it though. Busted my ass through architectural engineering at Oregon State. Working construction on weekends to avoid student loans. Meanwhile, Lucas dropped out of community college. Lasted only 2 semesters. Claimed the system was too restrictive for his creative spirit. Or whatever excuse mom bought that week. But I was making it. Got decent grades. Had good friends. Even landed solid job at major construction company after graduation. Designing commercial buildings. Pay wasn't amazing at first, but was doing well for my age in Oregon. Plus, got to work on actual buildings. Instead of being stuck behind desk all day. That's where I met Lily. She was doing student teaching at elementary school. Right next to one of our construction sites. Used to see her during lunch breaks. Sitting outside with her kids during recess. One day, some kid's ball rolled over to our site. Brought it back. We got talking. Man, I really thought she was different. She was studying to be teacher. Loved kids. Came from good family. Basically everything I thought I wanted. Mom absolutely loved her from day one. Should have been my first red flag looking back. Always inviting her over for family dinners. Even when I was working late at site. She and Lucas would spend hours talking about movies and music. While I was busting my ass trying to build us a future. It's so nice that you and Lucas get along so well. Mom would say, beaming like she'd personally arranged it. After 3 years together, proposed last November. Had it all planned out, took her to this spot by Mountain Lake, where we had our first real date, got down on one knee in snow. Whole 9 yards. She said yes. Really thought I had it all figured out. We even put down payment on nice house. Near my parents' place, Lily talked about wanting at least 3 kids. Said she wanted to raise them close to family. Your mom's going to be such an amazing grandmother. She used to say, hell, all the signs were there. Looking back now, can see all red flags I missed. How she'd always find excuses to hang at my parents' place. When I was working weekends, how she and Lucas had all these inside jokes I wasn't part of. How mom would sometimes make weird comments about how alike they were or how they just got each other on different level. But you know how it is. Never want to believe people closest to you could betray you like that. Remember this one time about month before everything went to shit? We were all having dinner at parents' place. Lily was telling story about something that happened at school. Lucas finished her sentence perfectly. They both laughed like it was most natural thing. Mom sat there with this weird, satisfied smile. Dad and Kate exchanged this look across table. But I was too busy thinking about work to notice what it meant. God, I was blind. Here's where everything goes to shit. It was a Thursday in March. Remember specifically because we were supposed to pour concrete for new hospital building foundation, but supplier fucked up delivery schedule. Foreman told me to take afternoon off, since we couldn't do anything until next day. Normally would have stayed and caught up on paperwork, but thought, hey, maybe I'll surprise Lily for lunch. She was always saying how I worked too much. Drove home around 1 p.m. Saw Lucas's beat-up Subaru in our driveway. That piece of shit car mom and dad bought him for his 23rd birthday, even though he'd already totaled 2 other vehicles. Should have known something was up right then. He was supposed to be at his part-time job at vinyl record store. His latest career path that mom was subsidizing. Figured maybe he was on lunch break too. Coming to tell Lily about his latest brilliant business idea. Or whatever. Front door was unlocked. Could hear music coming from upstairs. Perfect by Ed Sheeran. Lily and I's engagement song. Ironic, right? There were clothes scattered upstairs. His ratty band t-shirt, her teacher cardigan. You know that moment in movies where everything goes quiet and time slows down? That's exactly what happened. Stood there staring at that cardigan, the one I'd gotten her for birthday, lying there on our stairs, like a neon sign pointing to what was happening in our bedroom. Not going to describe what I saw when opened that door. You can figure it out. But here's the part that really fucked with me. They didn't even notice me at first, just kept going like they were in their own little world. When they finally saw me, Lucas actually had the balls to say, "Oh bro," like he'd just spilled a drink on my couch or something. Lily started crying immediately, pulling sheets around herself, saying, oh God," over and over. Like broken record, Lucas just sat there looking at me, with this weird mix of guilt and relief. Like he was almost glad it was finally out in the open. Didn't say anything, didn't scream, didn't throw punches, though God knows I wanted to. Just turned around, walked downstairs, sat in my truck for about an hour. They both came out eventually. Lucas practically running to his Subaru. Lily standing on our front porch in her robe. Mascara running down her face, waited until Lucas left, then went back inside. How long? That's all I asked. She tried to dodge question at first, talking about how things just happened, how she never meant to hurt me. But I just kept asking, how long? Finally she broke. 2 years. 2 fucking years. Since right after I started taking weekend shifts to save for her ring. All those Saturdays I spent working overtime. Thinking I was building our future, she was with him. Every time she said she had to grade papers or work on lesson plans, she was with him. When she went to my parents' house to help mom with gardening, yeah, you guessed it. The worst part? She actually tried to explain herself. Sat there on our couch. The couch I'd spent 4 paychecks on, because she said it would be perfect for our future family. Told me how she developed feelings for Lucas over time. How they had this deep connection through music and art that she and I never had. How she still loved me, but was in love with him. Told her she had until end of day to get her stuff and get out. She started crying again, saying she needed more time, that we should talk about this. I just walked out, drove to home improvement store, bought new locks. By time I got back, she was gone, but she'd left a note. Still have it somewhere. 5 pages of handwritten bullshit about how sorry she was, how she never planned for this to happen, how Lucas made her feel understood in a way I never did. Called my boss, told him I needed few days off, spent next 48 hours changing every password I had, bank accounts, social media, everything, blocked both their numbers. Only reason I even knew what happened next is because Kate told me later. Apparently Lily went straight to my parents' house, found mom in the garden of course, broke down crying, confessing everything. And what does my mother do? Hugs her, tells her everything happens for a reason, and that maybe this is for the best. Even made her stay for dinner. My mother made my fiancé dinner. The same day she caught her cheating with my brother. Lucas showed up too, probably after Lily called him. Had this whole speech ready about how they didn't choose this, how love just happens, how they wanted to tell me, but didn't know how. Mom sat there nodding along, like this was some Hallmark movie about star-crossed lovers. Dad just stared at his plate. While Kate stormed out, Lily moved in with her parents initially, but within a week, she was spending every night at my parents' house, in my old room, with my brother, and mom was just okay with it. Actually seemed happy about it. Later found out she'd been encouraging them, telling Lucas how Lily was more his type, telling Lily how alike they were. Next few days are kind of a blur. Remember Kate coming over with pizza, sitting with me while I alternated between rage and emptiness. She told me mom was already talking about when things settle down, and how we'll all laugh about this someday. Yeah, right? That weekend I got an email from Lily, asking to talk about splitting up our shared stuff. Told her to take whatever she wanted. Didn't want anything that reminded me of her anyway. She took most of the furniture, including that couch. Left me with empty apartment, an engagement ring I'm still paying off. So after initial discovery and Lily moving out, that's when the real mindfuck started. Mom began this campaign to normalize everything. She'd casually mention how natural Lucas and Lily's connection was, how she'd always seen something special between them. Started bringing up all these memories of them together, rewriting history to make their betrayal seem like some beautiful love story that was meant to be. Remember that music festival they went to together 2 years ago? The one mom convinced me not to go to because I needed to focus on my career. Yeah, turns out that's when they first hooked up. Mom knew. She knew, had been encouraging them to spend time together because Lily brought out a better side of Lucas. Meanwhile, I was working 60-hour weeks, trying to save up for house, for wedding, for future I thought we were building. The worst part? Mom started suggesting maybe this was all my fault. You were always so focused on work, she'd say, or Lily needed someone who could understand her creative side, like my crime was working hard to build a life. instead of sitting in basement smoking weed and finding myself like Lucas. Then this supervisor position opened up at our Nevada branch. Pay was significantly better. Honestly, I needed an escape plan. The day I heard about it, I just found out Mom had helped Lily move her stuff into Lucas's room. My old room. The room where I'd spent countless nights studying. While Lucas was out partying, the room where I'd planned my whole future with Lily. And now they were sleeping in there together. With Mom's blessing, didn't tell anyone about job offer at first, kept it to myself. While I watched my family bend over backwards to accommodate the people who'd betrayed me. Kate was only one who seemed to see how fucked up it all was. But even she was starting to crack under Mom's pressure. Maybe we should try to understand their side, she said one day, not meeting my eyes. That's when I knew I had to get out. But before I could tell anyone about moving, Thanksgiving happened. Oh boy, did it happen. Walked into my parents' house, and there they were. Lucas and Lily sitting at kitchen table, like nothing had happened. Lily wearing this cardigan I'd bought her last year. Looking all cozy and at home. Lucas had his arm around her chair. Mom was beaming at them, like they were the royal couple. Moment I walked in, everyone went quiet. You know that silence. That's so thick you could cut it with a knife. Yeah, that. Then Mom starts this rehearsed sounding speech about healing as a family and learning to forgive. Dad just sat there nodding, like a dashboard bobblehead. And Kate, God, Kate! She was sitting next to them, actually sitting with them, looking at me with these guilty eyes. That's when Mom dropped the bomb. She'd invited Lily's parents too. Wanted to bring the families together. Since Lucas and Lily were getting serious, like they hadn't been fucking behind my back for 2 years, like they hadn't destroyed every future plan I had. After seeing Lucas and Lily sitting there, at my parents' table like they owned the place, I just broke. You know that moment when everything becomes crystal clear? Like when you're drunk and suddenly get sober in an instant. That's what happened. Walked out without saying a word. Mom was calling after me. Something about family and healing, and whatever other bullshit she'd rehearsed. But I just kept walking. Got in my truck and drove to Burger King. Sitting there eating a Whopper on Thanksgiving. Sounds depressing as fuck, right? But honestly, that sad meal in my truck was better than watching my family pretend everything was normal. While they passed the gravy to people who destroyed my life, while sitting there, surrounded by only other people sad enough to be at Burger King on Thanksgiving, started making list on my phone. Everything I needed to do to disappear. Not like witness protection disappear, but this entire situation disappear. Nevada job was already lined up. My boss had been practically begging me to take it. Company was expanding like crazy down there. Needed someone with experience running major projects. First thing I did was go to bank next morning, opened new account at completely different bank. Transferred every penny from joint accounts. Thankfully, Lily and I never got around to combining everything. Teller gave me this knowing look. When I closed accounts, turns out her ex had cleaned out their joint account when he left. So she was extra careful making sure everything was properly documented. Next was phone. Did you know if you're on family plan, primary account holder can see every number you call or text? Yeah, Mom had been using that to keep tabs on me for years. Went to different carrier, got new number, new phone. Everything. Guy at store helped me transfer all important stuff. Without linking to any old accounts, social media was next. But before I nuked everything, downloaded all my photos and important messages, then started blocking people. Lucas, Lily, Mom, Dad, their friends, their families, everyone who'd chosen their side, left Kate blocked but unfriended her. She was still on fence, and I couldn't deal with that either. Changed my email, created new social media accounts under different name. For work stuff, apartment was trickier, still had 4 months on lease, but landlord was surprisingly cool about it. Turns out he'd gone through something similar with his brother, years ago. Let me break lease with just 1 month's penalty. Started packing that night, threw out anything Lily and I had bought together, that couch she'd left behind. Posted it for free on Craigslist. College kids came and got it within hour. Was supposed to start Nevada job in January, but called my boss, told him I needed to start sooner. Made up some bullshit about wanting to get settled before holidays. He was stoked, said they needed help ASAP anyway. Found apartment in Las Vegas through guy at work. Signed lease electronically. Paid deposit that day. Next week was blur of packing and planning. Only told 2 people what I was doing. My best friend from construction crew, and my old foreman. They helped me load U-Haul. No questions asked. My foreman even gave me heads up that Mom had been calling office looking for me. The irony, while I was packing, Mom kept trying to arrange this big family meeting. To work things out, kept leaving these voicemails about how we needed to heal together and how running away from problems doesn't solve them. Rich coming from woman who'd been running from reality for years. Pretending her precious golden child could do no wrong. Day I left, December 13th, was cold as fuck. Like frost on windows, breath freezing cold. Felt appropriate somehow. Got up at 4 a.m. Loaded last few boxes. Hit road before sun was up. Didn't leave note. Didn't tell anyone goodbye. Just got in my truck with U-Haul hitched to back and started driving south. Mom must have noticed something was up pretty quick, because by time I hit Utah, my phone was blowing up with messages from random relatives. Apparently she'd gone to my apartment, found it empty, started calling everyone she could think of, crying about how I'd abandoned the family and how she was worried sick. I just kept driving. Somewhere in Utah, I got friend request on Instagram from an account I didn't recognize. It was Mom trying to be sneaky. Her message was a piece of work. Why would you move without telling us? We're your family. We miss you and need you home for the holidays. We can work through this together, I replied with most satisfying message ever written. You only have one son left. I'm not part of that family anymore. Then blocked her new account and kept driving. Hit Nevada that night. Checked into hotel because I was too tired to deal with apartment. Laid there in that generic hotel room, staring at ceiling. You know what? For first time in months, actually slept through night. No stress dreams. No waking up angry. Just peace. Found out later Mom had complete meltdown. When she read my message, started calling everyone in family, crying about how her baby boy was making rash decisions and how she'd failed as a mother. Yeah, no shit, you failed, Mom. Just not in way you think. So there I was in Nevada, actually starting to build decent life for myself. Got promoted to project manager within 3 months. Turns out when you're not dealing with constant family drama, you can actually focus on work. Bought myself new Ford F-250, the kind Lucas always wanted, but couldn't afford because artists don't care about material things. Started training BJJ at local gym. Figured needed healthy way to deal with all anger. Was finally sleeping through night, without waking up wanting to punch walls. Then it happened. It was Wednesday in January. When I got the call, was on site reviewing plans with foreman. When phone buzzed, didn't recognize number, but it had Oregon area code. Almost didn't answer it. Kind of wish I hadn't. It was my Aunt Patricia, Mom's sister, only reasonable one in family. She was crying, which immediately set off alarm bells. Because Aunt Patricia never cries, said Mom had been diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. Terminal. 3 months to live. Maybe less. Said Mom was asking for me. Wanted to make peace before you know. Sat there in my truck for hour after that call, just staring at nothing. Called my boss, told him I needed few days. Booked flight back to Oregon for next morning. Even packed suit, because I thought, well, you know what I thought. Whole flight back I was thinking about Mom. Yeah, she'd fucked up royally with Lucas and Lily's situation, but she was still my mother. Started remembering all good times. Her coming to my lacrosse games, making my favorite meals when I was sick, teaching me how to drive in that old Toyota. By time plane landed, I'd convinced myself maybe this was a sign. Maybe we could fix things before it was too late. Aunt Patricia picked me up at airport. Should have noticed something was off. When she wouldn't look me in eye, said Mom was at home, wanted to see me right away. Walked into that house, the house I grew up in. House I hadn't set foot in since Thanksgiving. And there they all were. Mom, Dad, Lucas, Lily, Kate, even Lily's parents. No hospital bed, no medical equipment. Mom looking healthy as ever. In her favorite gardening sweater. Silence was deafening. Mom started crying. Her fake crying. The kind where she makes sure everyone can see her tears. Saying how she had to do something to get me home. How she couldn't bear to have her family torn apart. Lucas and Lily were holding hands. Looking guilty but also satisfied. Like they thought this was somehow going to fix everything. You know that moment in movies? Where a hero just snaps, that perfectly calm fury. Where everything becomes crystal clear. Yeah, that happened. Looked at my mother. Really looked at her. Saw her for what she was. This manipulative, toxic woman who'd spent my entire life enabling one son while destroying other. You faked having cancer. I said it so quietly, they had to lean in to hear me. You faked having terminal cancer to manipulate me into coming back. Mom tried to justify it. Started talking about how desperate times call for desperate measures and how mother will do anything to keep her family together. Lily actually nodded along, like this was somehow reasonable behavior. Lucas just stared at floor, probably thinking about how he could turn this into material for his shitty poetry. Dad finally spoke up, trying to play peacemaker like always. Son, your mother just wants to fix things. We all miss you. Lucas and Lily are engaged now, and we need to find way to be family again. That's when I lost it. Not violently. I was past that. Just started laughing. Couldn't stop. Here was my family, who'd betrayed me in every way possible, who'd lied about cancer, sitting there expecting me to just fall in line. With their delusion, looked at each of them in turn. You know what the funny thing is? I actually felt guilty on the plane, was thinking about all good memories, wondering if I'd been too harsh. But this, gestured around room, this is actually a gift. Because now I know with absolute certainty that I made right choice cutting you all out of my life. Mom started wailing, her real crying this time. The ugly kind she usually keeps private because it ruins her makeup. Lucas stood up, probably to try some brotherly bullshit, but I just held up my hand. The only reason I came back was because I thought my mother was dying. Congratulations, Mom. You just killed any chance of ever having a relationship with me again. Turned around and walked out. Could hear them calling after me. Mom's cries getting more hysterical by second. Lily actually tried to follow me, saying something about understanding my pain. I just kept walking. Aunt Patricia was waiting in her car, crying for real this time. Turns out Mom had manipulated her too. Told her I was suicidal and needed intervention. Said cancer story was only way to get me home. Classic Mom using everyone's emotions against them. Got Uber to airport. Caught next flight back to Las Vegas. Blocked every Oregon number in my phone, except Aunt Patricia's. She'd earned right to stay connected. After exposing Mom's manipulation, after cancer stunt, threw myself into work and building my new life in Nevada. Started dating Olivia, this awesome girl I met at BJJ Gym. She was different from Lily in every way. Independent, straightforward, zero interest in playing family politics. She'd heard bits and pieces of my story through mutual friends, but never pushed me to talk about it. Just accepted me as I was. Baggage and all, things with Olivia were going great. She was trauma surgeon, worked crazy hours like me, understood value of hard work in a way Lily never did. We'd been together almost a year. When Christmas rolled around, her family invited me to spend holidays with them in Reno. Normal family, good people. Her dad was a retired police officer who actually wanted to hear about my construction projects. Her mom kept trying to feed me more prime rib. Wouldn't take no for an answer. It felt healthy, real. Christmas Eve was perfect. Olivia's mom made this incredible beef Wellington. Their family tradition. We exchanged gifts, watched old Christmas movies, for first time in years. Felt like maybe could have this kind of normal family life again. Should have known better. Christmas morning started out great too. More food, more presents, more of that warm family feeling. Then Olivia's mom mentioned they were expecting some family friends for dinner. Didn't think much of it at first, even helped set up extra chairs in dining room. Doorbell rang around 4 p.m. Olivia's mom went to answer it, and I heard them before I saw them. My mother's voice, trying to sound sweet and concerned, like she always did when she had audience. My whole body went cold. Turned around and there they were. Mom, Dad, Kate, Lucas, and Lily, standing in doorway, like some fucked up Christmas card. That's when I saw Olivia's face. Not surprised, just guilty. She'd known. She'd helped plan this whole thing. Turns out she'd been talking to my mother for months, coordinating this intervention, because she thought she was helping. My mother had fed her some story about how worried they all were about me, how I was running from my problems, how I needed family support to heal properly. Mom started her usual routine. What they did was wrong. But your actions are unacceptable too. Like somehow me leaving town was equal to my brother fucking my fiancée for 2 years. Dad chimed in about how enough was enough, and how Lucas had suffered enough for his mistakes. Suffered? He got the girl, kept the family, and I'm one who needed to get over it. Lily was there holding Lucas's hand, wearing this fancy new engagement ring. Pretty sure it was bought with money from selling my old house, the one Mom had convinced them to invest in as couple. After I left, she tried to speak, probably to share some profound insight about how love works in mysterious ways, or whatever they'd rehearsed. I cut her off, looked right at Olivia and said, "Find your own way home. I'll pick up my things later." Simple, quiet, final. Everyone started talking at once. Olivia crying, Mom doing her theatrical gasping thing, Lucas trying to play peacemaker, like he had any right. As I was leaving, Mom grabbed my arm, started going on about how their family name was so important, how she'd raised me better than this. That's when I told her I'd already changed my last name months ago. You'd think I'd told her I'd committed murder. She actually collapsed into chair, wailing about family legacy and tradition. Drive back to Las Vegas was long and quiet. Had plenty of time to think about how stupid I'd been, trusting someone again. Olivia called about 50 times that night, left voicemails about how she was just trying to help, how she thought bringing everyone together would fix things. Classic manipulation victim. My mom had played her, just like she played everyone else. Got back to my apartment around 3 a.m. Looked at Christmas tree Olivia and I had decorated together. All presents still wrapped underneath. Took every gift she'd given me over past year. Put them in box. Added spare key she'd left. Toothbrush from my bathroom. Everything. Dropped it all off at her place next morning. Before she got back from Reno. Worst part. Found out later this whole Christmas intervention had been in works for months. Olivia had been reporting back to my mother about everything. Where I was working. Who I was hanging out with. If I was dating anyone else. She'd even help them find my new address, which I'd kept private specifically to avoid this kind of shit. Mom had played Olivia perfectly. Shown her old family photos. Told stories about how close we all used to be. Painted this picture of concerned mother. Just trying to help her troubled son. And Olivia, wanting to be one who fixed everything. Fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Then about a year later, my company won this huge contract to demolish and rebuild a bunch of foreclosed properties in Oregon. Guess whose house was on that list? Yep, my parents' place. The one Mom had remortgaged to pay for Lucas and Lily's dream wedding. Same house where she'd hosted all those family dinners, where she'd orchestrated her little manipulations, where she'd welcomed my brother and ex into my old room. I personally volunteered to oversee that demolition. Drove up there on Tuesday morning. Watched them tear down every last brick. Mom showed up halfway through, probably tipped off by neighbor. She looked old. Not just older, but worn down. Found out later she's working as dollar store cashier now. First real job she's had in 30 years. Karma's got sense of humor, I guess. But that's just beginning. Through Kate, who finally grew spine, and reached out to apologize. I got full update on everyone's spectacular downfall. Lucas and Lily's perfect marriage crashed and burned. 6 months in, turns out Lily's got type. She likes to cheat. Caught her with Lucas's best friend. Same guy who was his best man at their wedding. But here's real kicker. She's pregnant with his kid. Same Lily who couldn't have children. Is now carrying his ex-best friend's baby. Lucas didn't handle it well. Started drinking heavily. Lost his job at vinyl record store. After showing up drunk one too many times, he's living in Mom's basement now. In their crappy rental apartment, writing angsty songs about betrayal. Irony is completely lost on him. Mom and Dad finally separated. Turns out Mom had been lying about their finances for years, taking out credit cards in Dad's name to fund Lucas's projects and wedding. Dad found out when they tried to refinance house, and bank laughed them out. He's living with my aunt now. Finally started therapy. Actually called to apologize. Said he should have stood up to Mom years ago. Lily's teaching career over. Word got around about her history of sleeping with her students' relatives. Yeah, turns out Lucas wasn't first. No school district will touch her now. She's working at call center, living with her new baby daddy in some rundown apartment complex. Her parents, who were so understanding about her following her heart with Lucas, won't even speak to her now. As for me, life's actually pretty good. Met this amazing woman named Hannah at farmer's market about a year ago. She's nothing like Lily or Olivia. She's direct, honest, actually has moral compass. We moved in together 6 months ago, and she's pregnant with our first kid. When she found out, she made it clear she didn't want any contact with my family. Even blocked them all on social media. Before I could ask, Mom somehow found out about baby. Small town gossip never dies. Sent me box of my old baby things with this long letter about family legacy and second chances. Baby stuff was mine, so I kept it. But letter went straight in trash. She even tried creating new social media accounts to reach me, posting about how much she misses her firstborn and how child needs their grandmother. Blocked every single account. Kate's getting married next month. She and Dad want to reconcile. No Mom or Lucas involved. Said they've both been in therapy, working through their roles in everything that happened. Kate admitted she was too weak to stand up to Mom back then, and Dad acknowledged how his passivity enabled everything. Hannah says maybe it's time to consider letting them back in. But she's not pushing it. She's seen all screenshots, read all manipulative messages, knows whole story, says she'll support whatever I decide, but also reminds me that people can change if they do work. Keyword being if. Here's thing though, watching karma finally catch up with everyone has been surprisingly empty. Thought I'd feel satisfied seeing them all suffer, but mostly I just feel relieved. Relieved that I got out, relieved that I built my own life, relieved that I broke cycle. For those asking about Dad and Kate, still haven't decided if I'll go to wedding. Some wounds take longer to heal than others.